Hi. First of all, I'm so sorry. I have bronchitis, so if I sound like an actual corpse that died of the bubonic plague, that's why. But I've tarried as long as I could before filming this video, and my voice still isn't better, so we're just doing it. Also, hi, if you don't know me, my name is Joy. I'm an avid reader and writer, and last week I actually finished the first draft of what will hopefully be my debut novel. I'm currently calling it Project Phoenix, and it is a high fantasy with a romantic subplot and gothic vibes. So now that I've done the first draft, now what, right? Logic would say move on to the second draft. But before I jump into the second draft, there are a lot of things that I want to do, and I do think that I want to take some time, like at least a couple of months before really officially diving into the second draft. So during that period of time, I'm going to be preparing for the second draft, but I also do want to do some brainstorming for the second book in this duology as well as for some other future projects. So stay tuned for that in the future. But for this video, I want to do a reverse outline as well as a preliminary revision checklist. Of course, I'll elaborate on all of that as we go on, but I do have to admit that I technically did start my second draft. Even though I'm not officially actually really starting the whole thing till I guess like a couple months probably. We'll see how long I can bear to keep myself away from this project because frankly I miss it already. So first of all, I prepped everything in Scrivener, and I think the approach that I'm going to do, I'm going to keep everything in the same project file, but I just made another folder. So now I have a folder that's just labeled first draft and it has my entire first draft in it. And now I'm going to have another folder that's labeled second draft. And this way, I actually think that for my revision process, I want to completely rewrite everything word for word. I might copy and paste things over if it's like absolutely perfect, but I doubt that. But I'll have kind of like a split screen going on where my first draft is right next to my second draft, and I write through it because a lot of the first draft has more zero drafted elements woven into it. There's some pieces and parts of it that are cohesive, but a lot of it really is not. And it's just me kind of brainstorming, spitballing. And I kind of want the chance to like actually feel like I am rewriting everything rather than editing an existing document. So I'm gonna rewrite everything from scratch basically. For future drafts and line editing, of course, I think that I'll just make a copy of the whole document and actually edit it line by line. But for this one, yeah, I'm like actually starting completely over, like fresh with a blank document. If that makes any sense at all, but I'll try to show you. But okay, talking about like the cheating moment, or okay, listen, it's my book, I can do what I want, like there are no rules. But I did technically start the second draft because I had just a visceral vision of how I wanted to start the book. And I'm a girl that began her book like way too close to the inciting incident. I didn't take enough time to develop my characters or my world or make the reader really care about what was going on. But I had an incredible idea of how to introduce all of those things in a really natural way, and it just really came to me. So I sat down and I wrote like 1,500 like really clear words. I felt like I really was finding my voice. I'm really happy with how it's starting to turn out. In the direction of the book, I feel like I'm finding it. You know, I'm starting to find my book in the midst of the mess, which is really, really exciting. Oh, I have a little ladybug crawling on me. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it tickles so much. Oh, bye. Okay, gosh, I feel like I'm all over the place with this intro, but I am going to start off just at least showing you what I mean by a reverse outline, what my goal is with that, and like, yeah, what's gonna happen with that. And then tomorrow I'm actually gonna be going live with a bunch of other lovely author tubers. So I want to like get this started and kind of show you the beginning of the process so that while I am doing writing sprints, like this is the project that I can work on. So yeah, let's go do that. Okay, so first I think I'm going to show you generally how I plan to tackle my revisions. Obviously, I'm not really doing it right this second, other than the one exception, which is the first chapter that I decided I really wanted to write. Which honestly, I'm glad that I did that because I feel like it's gotten me really excited about the project, where, to be completely honest with you, when I was finishing the first draft, like, I was so relieved to be done with it, but once I got to the end of the book, I was feeling so overwhelmed by all the things that I wanted to change, and I was feeling really down in general about my thoughts about the book and, like, my attitude towards it. But rewriting the beginning and having such a clear look at what the end product might be like more realistically. I don't know, it's making me feel way more excited about the project. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try to show you what I'm looking at right now. Okay, so first of all, this is my first draft. I did already start doing a reverse outline for like the first half of the book, but I think I want to redo it because I want to do it differently than what I had done before, because I did this like reverse outline like 6 months ago, and my intent was to continue kind of outlining each chapter after I had written it, but that didn't really happen. So if we go in here, by the way, I am in like the index card view of Scrivener, which I absolutely love, and that's kind of what I'm going to be using for my reverse outlining. But this first chapter is not like written out in any sort of prose. This is like part of the first draft, but it was more like a zero draft. And I actually wrote, this was like one of the last things that I wrote in my first draft because I didn't come up with the way that I actually officially wanted to begin the story until here. Again, previously I had this prologue. Actually, I started, I think, in chapter 3 right here. That's when when I first started the draft, that's where I started, is what is now currently tentatively chapter 3. And then after that, halfway through the book, I went back and wrote chapter 2 thinking, oh, maybe this will be how I open it. And then I wrote the prologue. I was like, maybe I'll open it in like a flashback. And then I was like, no, I want to open it here. So I've changed my mind of where I wanted to open this story like 4 times. And I keep kind of like pushing it back with the exception of the prologue. I haven't decided if I want to include it or if I want to do like a different prologue. I'm still on the fence about it. But anyway, so this section here that I'm talking about, yeah, it's a big mess. But once I finished my first draft, as I kind of alluded to already, I had a really clear idea of how I wanted to write it. And for the second draft, as you can see, I added in slots for all of the chapters, but I haven't filled them out yet, which is exciting because that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do my reverse outline, I think, fresh here on the second draft. That might not be a good idea, but I guess, I don't know, that's just what I'm going to do for now, and I'll edit it later if I change anything in the structure and that sort of thing. But that way, when I go into each chapter, I'll have a reminder and like a bird's eye view of what this scene is driving towards. And then as I'm actually rewriting each scene, so right now this is just like, it's like half of the chapter, maybe, what I think will be the opening chapter of the book, unless I include a prologue, which is what I like wrote illegally. So up here there is like a toggle split option, so I hit that, and then on the right I have my first draft, and then if I click here I can scroll down to the first draft and dive right in to like the zero draft that I had written for this chapter. So like I had like, oh, setting ideas, crossing from the apprentice quarter to the main castle, go to a named hall, and I just like wrote down like a bunch of random ideas of like things that I was thinking of. So I had this on the left as my reference, which is technically the first draft. Parts of the first draft are a lot cleaner than what's here in chapter 1, because chapter 1 I just didn't actually write out, I just brainstormed. But over here is where I actually wrote out like everything. And so I think that's what I'm gonna do for every single scene. I'm gonna just like pull from the first draft on this left side and kind of rewrite it line by line. And if I decide to change things in the moment or restructure things, I mean, I'm gonna be referring to my revision notes as well. So like there's gonna be some structural things that also change. I might change entire scenes, but I think this is gonna be in general my process. I also, if you notice, I changed the font as well, which, so for the first draft I was writing the entire thing in Helvetica Neue, which I love Helvetica. It's one of my favorite sans serif fonts. I use it all the time. I just think it's so good. But for the second draft I'm using Palatino, which is a serif font, and it's commonly used for books. And I actually really like having 2 different fonts because it's just helping to change my mindset. The serif font feels more formal, so it makes me feel like I want to be less messy, more neat, which is kind of, you know, that's what I'm going for with the second draft, is to be more cohesive, whereas the first draft is just like getting the ideas down, and I felt a lot more casual with it. So I really like just psychologically that shift. Also, at a glance I can tell which one's which really easily. But okay, moving on to the reverse outline and kind of what I want to do with it. For the reverse outline, I just go to like the cards. I'm gonna go back to single screen here. for the reverse outline, I know there is like an outline function, but I think I prefer like the way that the index cards work. But basically what I'm doing is filling out this synopsis section for each chapter, and I'm giving a very bare bones summary of the main beats of that scene. I might break it down a little bit further and go scene by scene, which is something that you can also do. But I think, at least for now, I think I'm going to keep it at the chapter level because I just want to know what happens in each chapter super loosely. I'm also going to note the POV, and maybe I'm trying to decide. So when I initially did the reverse outline, like halfway through my first draft, I think I did, what did I do? I think I did do it scene by scene, actually. Yes, I did it scene by scene instead of chapter by chapter. And I included like the POV, the setting, the type, as well as the function of the scene, like what it was actually doing. But it started getting really overwhelming for some reason, like to just like have to break all that down. I think what I'm gonna do for this reverse outline, and I might go back in and elaborate, I might go back in and break it up by scene, but I think I just want to do a summary. I don't even think I'm going to include the POV because as I was writing, like I already was conscious of like whether or not I balance POVs, and the way that I have things structured currently is that the POVs don't switch by chapter, but they can even switch like within the same chapter, but they're just delineated by scene or like line breaks. So yeah, let's do the first chapter together. And the nice part is I did just write the first chapter, but yeah, to clarify, for most of the reverse outline, it's going to reflect the first draft as is so that I can just see what the plot is and what the pacing feels like just at a glance, you know? And this will help me to organize my thoughts and see if the plot is working, if it makes sense, if my characters are dynamic, at least at a glance, in terms of the types of decisions that they're making. So I'm expanding it out so it's easier to see everything. So chapter 1 synopsis. What happens in chapter 1? I'm going to say Vera, a guild apprentice. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up the chapter next to me right here. Especially with me being sick, I feel like my brain is not working very well. It's hard because there's a lot of nuance that happens. There's a lot of internality that's happening in this chapter, but I think I'm just trying to bare bones say like what happened, because like I could get into like world building and like what the reader learns about the world, like as it's woven into there, and like what the reader learns about Vera. I think I actually might include function just so that I have a spot for those thoughts. But strictly in terms of like what happens, Vera wakes early and is the first guild apprentice to arrive at Dunwich Chapel. The next main beat is she is nervous about Dunwich Chapel, where Aloysius will announce the latest marks and standings for the apprentices. Vera is nervous that she will rank low. Vera is nervous that she will rank on the lower side and will be ousted from the guild. Vera is nervous because she needs to be accepted to the guild in order to provide for her family, and she wants to be in the guild because it will give her a place to find belonging, but odds are she is going to rank low and will be ousted next month at midsummer. Will be ousted at midsummer next month. Ousted from the guild. How about that? Just to be clear about it. That might be like a little bit convoluted, but my brain's not really working. There's some other things that happen as far as getting introduced to characters, but ultimately Rosalind is the first in the standings. It's hard to know what I want to say. On hearing the standings, her fear is confirmed. She is near the bottom of the list, but she still has hope that she will be able to scrape by as long as she performs well in the next training module. Expeditions to the wastes. Okay, there's so much that's like not included in here, but that's what function is for. Okay, so function, some of the things that are accomplished, so like that's like the bare bones, I guess, summary of Vera's, like just from her perspective, like what she's focused on, right? Like that's basically what happens. She wakes up early, she goes to Dunwich Chapel, and she hears about the standings. But there are so many other things that are introduced about the world. So first, we establish Vera's desires and fears, as well as some of her flaws and strengths. 2, we are introduced to some significant characters, including Dorora, characters and dynamics, I would say. And dynamics, including Dorora, not Montgomery anymore, Ambrose. I renamed one of my characters. Dorora, Ambrose, and Rosalind. 3, introduced to the guild and its function, as well as how apprenticeship works, and along with it, the stakes with which Vera is reckoning. I'm going to say the initial stakes because things are going to change. This is not good. Okay, sorry. I'm like editing myself. Introduces. Establishes. Yeah, that's way better. Okay. I'm trying to think of a word other than establish or introduce, but this doesn't have to be like good writing. It's just for myself. Oh, oops, typo. It also introduces some of the, I guess, like racial and cultural tensions at play in the world. Or it alludes to. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do for like all of the chapters, basically, is try to break down the bare bones of what happens and then how it functions, like how it keeps the story moving forward or establishes world building, character, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what I'm starting with, and I'm gonna keep doing that for this week, basically. Hopefully it doesn't take me a whole week, but it might. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much time I have to work on this, because then I also want to make a preliminary revision checklist, which I will talk to you about once I get there. So, yeah. Okay, it has been like a solid 5 days, I believe, since the last time we spoke. And I finished my reverse outline, and it took me way longer than I expected it to. I was working on it during a writing live stream, and then I worked on it in the coffee shop, which you just saw. I worked on it like pretty much most evenings, like a little bit here and there. And I think part of the reason that it was taking me so long was like I wasn't thoroughly rereading every single chapter, but I was kind of skimming it for the main pieces that I wanted to draw out. And I was writing it as it was written, but I also bracketed in the bottom possible changes to consider making, and there were a lot, and I kept on like having ideas throughout making the reverse outline. So it's kind of a hybrid to where, yes, it gave me an idea of like a bird's eye view of like what my book actually is right now, but I also had a lot of adjustments that I don't want to set them in stone yet, but while I'm writing the second draft, I'm going to have that right there, and I'm going to be able to consider, okay, do I want to make these structural changes? Like, do they feel right as I'm writing them out? Do I want to make these characterization changes? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm finding that I want to change. So many things. It's actually like a little bit frightening how many things I want to change. But ultimately, like looking at it as a whole, I was starting to get really, really excited. Like just realizing, okay, actually, I think that this book is going to be kind of exciting. Like, in the moment while I was writing it, like the first draft, and even brainstorming, like, I liked it, but I didn't feel like it was that big of a deal because I knew what all the plot twists were going to be in the end result, if you know what I mean. So it's like, I don't know, I was used to all of those reveals, but looking at it at a bird's eye view and like looking at the things that I foreshadowed earlier on, and oh my gosh, just seeing it all come together like that is so satisfying and so fun. I love it. So yes, I am overall excited, especially with the changes that I'm going to make with like how the plot is going to wind up. Now, I was feeling excited about most things, with the exception of the ending. The ending was not correct. I was really like, as I was doing the reverse outline of like what I had, oh my gosh, it's such a mess. It's incoherent. It doesn't bring things together. Like the climax is not climaxing, like it's not good. And I was just like, man, how am I gonna make all these things come together and also like wrap up these character arcs, but also, you know, prepare things for the sequel, because I knew what the sequel was going to be about, but it also at the same time, like every time I thought about the second book in this duology, like the only part of the second book of the duology that was like getting me excited when I was thinking about it was the climax of the second book. But I felt like in order to like get to that spot and like have the right amount of payoff for some of the things I had seeded, I was like, well, you know, we'll just have like another journey to like get there and it'll be fine and I'll figure it out. That was like yesterday, right? I was feeling that just like this isn't working, right? And then I went for a 2 mile run because, you know, we're getting back into running. I've run like 8 miles so far this week. I'm gonna run another 2 miles tomorrow to make it 10 miles. Before winter reared its ugly head and made me not want to go outside anymore, you know, I was running like 20 miles a week. So now we're working our way back because I maybe ran 20 miles total in the month of March. Part of that was also me getting sick a lot and just generally being super busy. And it, like the weather being temperamental, like either cold or like really rainy, but like the uncomfortable type of rainy. Like I'm not opposed to running in the rain, but only if it's like 70 degrees, not if it's like 40 degrees. You know what I mean? Anyway, for me, like any sort of like physical activity, very much running ends up being this for me a lot of the time. Makes my creative ideas flow a lot more, and like I think about my book most of the time on my runs. On my run yesterday, I felt like I kind of unlocked the plot. I had a total epiphany for how the ending is going to go, and in tandem with that, I'm also thinking, wow, maybe this doesn't have to be a duology after all. I had settled on it being a duology when like I felt like the plot was really ballooning and I was, you know, my first draft is 100,000 words and I was like, I still have like more scenes to write. Like this is going to be way too long if it's just one book. So I felt like I needed to kind of split it into a duology. But again, I was not very excited about the second book every single time I was thinking about it and trying to figure out how it was going to go. So I was like, what if there's a way for me to take like the ending of the second book and shove it into the ending of the first book, and then we have a full resolution and it becomes a standalone. I will have to kill some darlings. There are some characters that I like introduced that I will have to cut out of the plot because those characters were mostly introduced for the sake of the second book, where I was going to like end up spending some more time with those characters in the second book. And I realized I think if I do it this way, and if I restructure the book and plant some things sooner, I think I can make it a standalone, albeit I don't know if I can make it under 120,000 words, which would be my goal so that it's easier to query. 'Cause if you don't know, if your manuscript is over 120,000 words for a fantasy, oftentimes they just like say, like they auto deny you basically, which is unfortunate, at least for a debut author. But yeah, my goal would be make it a standalone, but under 120,000 words. If it is over 120,000 words and I don't know how to cut anything else without sacrificing major things I don't want to sacrifice, then I think I'll resolve to self-publish it if I think it's good enough. But honestly, now that I have the bird's eye view, I do think that it's probably good enough. Like, I'm excited about these characters and about this plot and about this world. There's a lot of things that I need to like fill out and decide on for myself, even if I don't provide all of the information and context for the readers. In this second draft, I am going to try to make it a standalone if I can, like based on the way that I restructure it. So that's where I'm at now. Major changes, frankly. Like, I was not expecting that to be the case, but I'm honestly really excited because I wanted this to be a standalone when I first set out, but I just felt like it was going to be way too much. Like, the story was going to be too much to be contained in a single book. But especially after reading something like Blood Over Brighthaven, which is 120,000 words, and it has such a complete character arc, such a complete package, like it packs a real punch. So much happens in that book, it feels like, and it's all contained in 120,000 words. Now that I've like seen it happen, I'm like, okay, I think I can do it. I just have to trim away any fat and make it really concise and to the point. I don't know, I think it might be possible. That makes me excited. Obviously, things are subject to change. I definitely might change my mind once I actually start drafting things and putting things into practice and be like, oh man, I can't do this. But I do feel a lot better about this. I think it will make for a stronger book. At least, like, I just didn't want the second book in the series to like fall flat because so much of what made the first book good was already in the first book and couldn't be translated to the second book. And I felt like by the end of the first book, a lot of their character arcs were already resolved in a lot of ways. So it's like, but really the next step is going to be, I already kind of started doing this because during the reverse outline I was making some notes, but I have a revision checklist and I'm going to organize it from like big things to more minute details and just have like an ongoing list. So I've already started adding to it. The first section is big picture world building / backstory, especially the things that have plot implications. Like, I just want to hash out some of the details of these things for myself largely so that I can feel confident in the details that I'm giving the readers. And these are a lot of the things that I bracketed. Not just stuff that's like innocuous, like names, but certain things like the dynamics of the guild structure and how it interacts with this other political structure, who has authority with what. I have a vague idea, but I want specifics for myself. I also want some more grounded details about a few characters' backstories, because I may or may not want to include flashbacks, but if I don't include flashbacks, I at least want to have the full context so that, again, I can more properly, I don't know, like make sure the character interactions are consistent with what I have in mind for what happened in their past. I'm trying to keep it vague because, like, obviously I don't even know what it is for myself. Okay. So yeah, I have just like a lot of random world building details to figure out that are plot significant and character significant, and I feel like I'll have a hard time moving forward with the second draft until I have those, it's like background work solidified. So these are notes for myself. It's a checklist. I'm not actually doing it yet, although I believe that I will make a future video, most likely, where I am brainstorming and trying to come up with all of these ideas, okay? And answering all of these questions that I have. That frankly, I mean, would it have been easier for me to determine all of this before I started writing? Yes! But I didn't even know that I knew these things until I wrote the first draft, so it's okay. It's hard to do the background work sometimes when you don't know what background work you need, because you could go down so many rabbit holes. You can get world builder's disease, get checked into the hospital, and never leave. And I don't want that for myself, and that's why I didn't spend time on it initially, because again, I just didn't know what I needed. But now I do, and that's the list that I'm making. The next two big sections are plot structure and character arcs. A third section that's related is also themes. And these are all kind of things I'm going to be trying to keep in mind in tandem with each other, because these are the things encompassed in a more developmental edit. That's largely what I'm going to be focusing on with the second draft, is focusing on that developmental edit, focusing on changes in the structure of the book and making those things happen, writing scenes that were missing, rewriting scenes where like many of the pieces are there but it's not fitting entirely with my new direction for the book. So yeah, I have like a whole list that I've been slowly building. And again, I have a lot of these notes in other places, and this is just me putting them all in one spot. Then from there, I have these categories, but I'm not really filling them out yet. I'm just making sure they're there. And within that, I think by that point in the book, I'll have decided and determined this is the type of diction that I want. This is the type of figurative language I want to evoke, like this kind of tone, and maybe even provide examples and be going for that most of the time, because I want all those things to go together. So that will be more of like the prose and line edit and like make it really nice and juicy and cohesive as far as like the voice goes. Then from there, there's going to be like the copy edit, which is just making sure my grammar is correct and things are consistent, like naming conventions and whatnot. Obviously, I'm going to be adding a lot to it, but that's what I'm going to be working on over the next few days, is kind of filling out this checklist. Maybe I will dive into brainstorming for this same video, just for funsies. We'll see how much time I have, but yeah, I've been talking for like 20 minutes now. I'm going to be cutting out a lot of this stuff, but that's my plan. Oh wait, also I need to acknowledge I got a new calendar and it's cute and it's maybe gonna help me keep my life together. Hello. It's been a few days, and that's mainly because I was unfortunately struck with a stomach bug, which just feels rude. Like I'm still coughing because of my bronchitis from last week, and now I have been throwing up. So it's like, why? But anyway, thankfully I'm mainly recovered now, just feeling really tired. Today, I did manage to finish my revision checklist. I mean, I'll kind of show you, but I'm not gonna like show you because spoilers. As you can see here, I've got a lot of notes for my revision checklist. I kept it pretty bare bones and basic. I also did not like include a ton of stuff about theme. I mainly, for this draft, I'm going to be focusing on like making all those structural changes, but I'm going to be like keeping in mind in the back of my head, like, hey, be thinking about theme. Like, you don't have to decide which things you want to focus on quite yet, but as you're incorporating these structural changes and making sure the character arcs make sense, really do try to pay attention, I guess, is kind of what I'm telling myself. So I didn't really fill out the theme section in the end because I felt like if I were to do any of that at this point, it might be a little bit contrived. And I have some ideas, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like I need to try to like fit each of those ideas into the puzzle that is my book and figure out which one fits the best. And if none of them fit, well, I'll figure that out when I get there. As for like all of the brainstorming notes that I made, I think the last time I filmed, I was feeling a little bit gung-ho, and I may or may not have been like, oh, maybe I'll do the brainstorming for this video too. No, I changed my mind. I was getting really overwhelmed when I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I think that this can wait until I come back from like a break from this book so that all of those like ideas can start percolating, and if I have a stray idea, I'll write it down in my notes and then come back to this at the end of my percolating era for this book. Does that make any sense at all? I guess marinating is maybe a more apt term. I do plan to let this first draft, now that I've made this like revision checklist, I do plan to just let it sit for at least a month as my goal. We'll see how long I can bear to keep my hands off of it. I'll try to wait until May. Let's just say that. I'll try to wait until May. If I feel like I can put it off longer, I will. But if I feel like, no, I really need to start the second draft and revising immediately and brainstorming because I'm so excited for the book, then I'll just start like as soon as I can in May, basically. But if I can even push it to June, like that would be great. I do think in my original timeline, I was trying to push this until closer to like July even, or August. Like I was gonna give myself like 4 months at least to let this draft marinate. But now that it's done, I'm like getting excited about the book and I'm like, no, but I kind of want to work on it. So I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, anyway, because I'm not going to be doing the brainstorming portion, I think I'm going to end the video here. Although I will say, just because I'm taking a break from this book does not mean I'm taking a break from making YouTube videos. I already have a different video in the works that's more of a reading vlog, but it's still related to my project, which I think hopefully you guys will enjoy. I'm having a lot of fun making the video. And I'm also planning on starting to delve into some like new projects and entering a brainstorming era for them, just to kind of keep my mind off of my current project. It's tough because my original plan was to do a zero draft of the second book in the duology, but now that I don't know whether or not I'm gonna have a second book, I don't really feel motivated to do that until I know it's confirmed that this book is gonna be a standalone, or if I am gonna stretch it out. I will keep you guys posted on those like new fun exciting projects. Ooh. Who knows, like maybe I'll get motivated and want to do like a writing craft chat. Like if anything comes to me, we'll talk about it. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me and being present with me in this process. I hope that things are going well with your project. So honestly, like I do want to hear about your project. So comment down below what you are currently working on, if you're working on anything specific in like the writing realm, or I mean, heck, even if you're just engaging in like some sort of creative project, it doesn't have to be writing related. I mean, let me know. I'm very curious. I always forget to do this, but if you made it to the end of the video, drop some sort of rain related emoji, because it has been pretty much gloomy all week, and I also had like the epiphany that I'm gonna have lots of gothic vibes recently, so like yes, I feel like rain is maybe fitting. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.